Hello, everybody. So this is a little topic. How many of you, just by a show of hands, have some interest in your job in cybersecurity? Raise your hands. Ooh. I would assume everybody in this room, right? So that's anyway. So little topic. We're gonna try to get us through as many things as we can in a short period of time. I'm really pleased to have a great panel up here today. We're going to start you, just to kind of give you a sense, we're going to start at sort of a high level. We're going to be talking about frameworks and approaches to cyber. We're going to break that down a little bit deeper into some use cases within government, and then we'll talk about sort of how to get it done. And we're going to boil the ocean in 20 minutes. So we'll see how we do. So let me introduce my panelists. First, starting to my right, we got Jon Boyens. He's the Deputy Chief of Computer Security Division at the National Institutes of Standards and Technology. He leads NIST's Cybersecurity Supply Chain Risk Management Program, co-leads the Software and Supply Chain Assurance Forum, and is the NIST Principal to the Federal Acquisition Security Council. He has worked on various White House-led initiatives, including those on trusted identities, federal supply chain, ICT supply chain, the cybersecurity framework, which we'll talk about today, and more recently, implementation of EO 14028, improving the nation's cybersecurity. To his right, to your left, is Ken Bailey. He's the Section Chief for Capabilities, Data, and Integration in the Threat Hunting Division of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA. His section is responsible for infrastructure and equipment used for CISA threat hunting and incident response teams. How many threat hunters do we have out here? Anybody? We'll make you threat hunters. He's taken resumes. He has been working in cybersecurity for more than 20 years and has been working with Docker, Kubernetes, and OpenShift for the last 8. Ken has commercial and government work experience and previously served as a CISO in the private sector, as well as Director of Cybersecurity for the Office of Administration, Executive Office of the President, where he established and managed the White House Security Operations Center. And then our final panelist is Sandra López. She's the Chief Technology Officer at engineering company Leidos and oversees enterprise and cyber solutions operations, technical innovation, differentiation, and strategy across Leidos. Her work includes the development of technical solutions for priority captures, management of the company's operational internal research and development portfolio, and support delivery for technical performance on major programs. Thank you all for being with us.
Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to jump right into questions. First one, how do I clicker? First one, we're going to focus, if we can, start with NIST and Jon. In May of this year, NIST published revision 1 of NIST SP 800-161, Cybersecurity Supply Chain Risk Management Practices for Systems and Organizations. Earlier in the year, NIST also published revision 1.1 of the Secure Software Development Framework, which we may refer to as SSDF up here. Can you describe how government agencies can use these documents to guide their implementation of better defense against cyber attacks?
Sure, thanks. So first, thank you for letting me come and speak, because we like to get out there and talk about the work NIST has done. We're a very small agency, small office in a small agency. So. But we think we punch above our weight. And so although you may not be familiar with Executive Order 14028, you're probably familiar with SolarWinds. And the executive order is in response to SolarWinds, a very large executive order. They give NIST a very big piece on the software security supply chain side. And it is both providing guidance to departments and agencies, as well as moving left of center and looking at how software is developed. And this is kind of the first time we've done this. But like any good government agency, we like to check that box on things we're already doing. So it just so happened we were in the process of updating 161, as well as we already had a white paper out on the SSDF. So we took those and kind of added to them different aspects of software security. A lot of our guidance was on software, and it was applicable to all types of software. In 161, what we did is we had a special section They kind of went through the different executive order aspects, and one part of that was open source software. In the SSDF, if you're not familiar with it, it is a framework. So that involves including different standards and practices. And the way we laid it out are 4 function areas with different practices and different examples. But the good part is about using frameworks is that any type of organization can use them. So if you're using different standards and practices, you can fit them in the different practical areas. If you're using special sauce that your organization uses that isn't attached to standards, you can fill it in there. But it allows an external organization to look at that kind of the framework profile and see how you're managing that software development. Related to that is some work that we've done out of the Office of National Cyber Directorate had an open source software kind of initiative in response to Log4j. Although Log4j really wasn't ultimately the answers that we found, we co-chaired a line of effort with NSF and OMB. I highly recommend the NSF held a workshop in August. They came out with the summary. Go take a look at that. It's a good piece of information. They had 30, 40 experts come together and talk about the problems with open source software. And then also checking another box with the SSDF, what we started doing from that initiative. If you're not familiar with the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, we work with the private sector to build implementations of our guidance. So that's what we're doing right now with the SSDF.
Excellent. Now, I love it in the SSDF, you mentioned there's 4 groupings in the framework, and we have things like, protect the software, produce well-secure software, respond to vulnerabilities. But you start with, what I love about the framework, you start with prepare the organization. And I think a lot of us, and there's probably some folks here in the audience and those watching that are interested in having to sort of drive cybersecurity maturity in their organization. Can you talk a little bit about this first part of the framework around preparing organizations and what organizations need to do first before they can begin to build a more secure software development practice?
Certainly. So, I mean, one of the beauties about the framework is it is workable for all types of maturity of an organization. So if you're a very mature organization and you're already using a lot of secure software development practices, it's plug and play, right? You put your practices in the little outline of the framework. If you're new, it refers to different standards that can help you get going. For the prepare stage, very consistent with if a new organization was going to develop its security policies, this does the same thing. It's kind of a framing sort of piece of the framework where an organization looks at its different policies. It looks at the infrastructure that the software is going to be developed in. Looks at roles and responsibilities. It looks at how it's going to incorporate third-party components. It's really preparing. It's an iterative process. So if you're new, you can go in here, you start filling out some of the other 3 sections, and you may have to go back and revise it. But it's an iterative process and kind of points to the things that you need to know in the different standards and practices.
Excellent. Okay. So let's get a little deeper into some use cases. Ken, let's talk about threat hunting and its role in this multi-layered defense for federal, state, and local agencies. How is CISA evolving its approach to protecting critical infrastructure with government-wide programs?
Yeah, so CISA, there's 2 real big drivers when it comes to what CISA is trying to do. One is kind of unleashing the information, right? DHS and CISA and the federal government has not been great at sort of spreading the wealth and getting information out to the agencies quickly. So CISA has been making a lot of efforts to kind of pull our intelligence and push it out to the end users, kind of realizing that through other programs like CDM and other things like that, that the best way to do a layered approach to defense is to give you more information, right? And you know, we would, if you are not currently using protective DNS, or you are not currently using the protective email systems, which are sort of a replacement based on feedback for the Einstein 3A program, you should definitely get in on that, because it not only provides an active defense, but it also gives you data, right? It gives you a reflection of what the data is doing, as well as through the vulnerability management team, we have a program called the Currently Exploited Vulnerabilities, which is updated sometimes weekly, but it is actually taking the CVEs and telling you when our intelligence has shown that it is being used. So if you're in the business of running firewalls or other systems and you're copy and pasting block lists and other things, this helps focus your efforts greatly. On the threat hunting side, the name of the game for us is getting our analysts working on your problem quicker. So the longer it takes for us to do these things and to start deploying kits and other things, it's harder on you, it's harder on us, right? So we are kind of doing all the automation that we can to ensure that when you call us, you are not waiting for us to show up, that we can put an analyst on that data right away. And a lot of the programs that CISA is focusing on is getting you the same data that our analysts have on the back end, so that you and I are talking about the same things, and there isn't some barrier between the secret sauce that I'm looking at and the stuff that you should have access to.
Very good. So can we dive in a little deeper on your actual use case with these kits? You guys have been building, you've gone through different iterations of kits over time, and you've looked at different deployment methods to, as you say, sort of lower that barrier to the investigators to get material faster and have the resilience and agility in the field that they need. Can you talk a little bit about, at a high level, the architecture that you've come up with and where you see this moving in the future to improve and enable your threat hunters out there?
Yeah, so the traditional kit that we deploy, and we still have these kits around, are 4 very large Pelican cases full of equipment, right? And it requires a freight shipment to arrive on site. So all of that process, anybody that's involved with like government procurement knows that I cannot procure freight very quickly. So when you call, it might be a week or 2 before that's there, and then a team shows up. So what we've been working on is leveraging cloud to take parts of the kit that doesn't really need to be on location, and just deploying sensors so we can stream back to either the network I run in Virginia or into one of our cloud environments. We've been looking at containerizing anything I can. We run into problems that security tools aren't always great candidates for containerization based on the permissions they need. But we're working through that. We're also making it a development environment so our analysts can develop things quickly so that we can actually push containerized applications out to systems so that it isn't, like when things get deployed and you forgot something, it isn't just go and download it, right? So it is, how do I get that entire system pushed towards ensuring that the analysts have access to all the tools they need and all the data they need without a huge burden or time delay for the customer. So we've been leveraging things like OpenShift and automating anything I can get my hands on, right? Any process that someone says, well, we do it by copying. I'm like, no. I always tell them I just want a big button for deploy kit. Sooner or later, I will get there, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Very good. And I'm guessing, for the most part, that also improves the morale of the teams that are working on these. They're not doing the painful, repetitious work that they've.
Yeah, exactly. And the time it takes for us to turn around like a physical kit, like I'm hoping that I can get that, as I scale down the actual physical kits, through automation and other things, I'm hoping to get that down from, say, like a week to hours. So that, you know, for me, like, you know, elections are like a time of great stress because I have the potential of, say, 50 plus engagements on a single day. So that time it takes to turn around kits is critical to me. So using things like containers, I can, you know, move everything off quickly and it's back to normal and I can send it out with very little, hopefully, human interaction beyond my button.
Automation, excellent. Okay, Sandra, so from your industry perspective, what are you seeing as the top implementation priorities among the agencies that you're supporting around multi-layered cyber defense?
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure being here, John. Let's see. From a zero trust perspective, I see that being the priority right now. DoD, it's about to issue its strategy guidance, which hopefully will include some frameworks that are acceptable for DoD-wide implementation. And that includes definitizing the capabilities that are needed, in the features and functions that are needed. In fact, you mentioned CDM. As I understand it, of the 45 capabilities that are coming in that strategy, 20 come from CDM. So quite a bit of reuse of what CISA has been advertising and proliferating out there for a while. So for zero trust purposes, I see that the framework being definitized as being a key pillar. Then the second part of that is understanding the agencies and services baseline. How does that baseline support the capabilities that are going to be required? And once that understanding arises, then them developing journeys towards that capability maturity that they require. They'll have to pick the maturity level that they are aspiring to reach. Different agencies will have different opinions and different guidance, but ultimately they'll all strive towards the same architecture, framework, and capabilities. Once that happens, then they'll start making investments in products. It's critical that we separate products from architecture and frameworks because products are, in fact, what makes things possible, but not the end goal. The end goal is to have a baseline that actually supports people, processes, and tools as they are deploying zero trust. It's a mindset change, it's a behavior change, it's a technology change. And I see that getting a lot more reality into it this year. The other thing I see some investment on, it's on dynamic decision-making with respect to the data that is being produced by the sensors in zero trust. And that dynamic thinking will allow us to now be continuously assessing the worthiness of those accesses, those individuals, those endpoints, and the endpoints of different kinds, human and non-human, that are going to be out there. I see that being the priority in 2023. And as I understand it, the framework that is about to be released by DoD, it's a journey towards 2027. So we have a couple of years to get from thinking to reality, and that's going to be our challenge.
Fantastic, thank you. How is Leidos, what are you looking at in terms of your investments based on everything you said? Like, where are you putting your bets down for 2023, your R&D funding, your solution architects, what are they working on?
So we have, we manage research and development from a portfolio perspective. And we have, in a high level, we have 3 portfolio areas that we are heavily investing. The first one is, of course, zero trust. It's not just understanding the customer's environments, understanding the product capabilities, understanding how those products fit into the various pillars of zero trust. So having laboratory that we can actually test implementations and validate the product capabilities in the context of those reference architectures. We're investing in edge to cloud. anything that is on the edge. For DoD, it's critical that we embrace multi-domain operations, JADC2, you've heard today about that, in order to actually play in that playground. We need to fortify that edge. And so Zero Trust blends and molds into a perfect way to protect that edge. It's not just about the compute, the storage, it's about the functional and the applications that are going to be on that edge to make JADC2 possible. And then the final part of that is what we call full spectrum cyber, which is fortifying the defenses in order to respond to the offenses. Is test anything that we do as if it was being offended or being aggressed by those offenders. And so we're using a lot more of AI/ML. We are getting quite a bit of that, the information domain, getting our hands around it, generating intelligence from that data that is being created by those sensors, and then taking that intelligence to decision-making using AI/ML and automation. SOAR capabilities, I see in the next 12 to 18 months, quite a bit of SOAR capability being deployed by our customers. And we're investing in that by creating playbooks that are easily moldable to the customer environments.
Excellent. So last couple minutes here, I'd like to get some reaction from John and Ken on where you think our audience should be investing what we might see over the horizon here into 2023 around cyber and multi-layered security. I'll start with you, John. Thoughts of
Sure.
where to invest?
I don't know about how much investment it takes. In some ways, I think organizations can overinvest and not quite understand the technologies that they're bringing into their organization. So it's going back to basic blocking and tackling, and the big K, the knowing the technologies that you're using, the impact on your organization, and then that third party, right? How is your organization interacting with your supplier partners and the products and technologies that you're getting from them and the impact it has on your organization.
Okay.
Yeah, it's sort of following up on what Sandra was saying, to do Zero Trust right, you got to log a lot of data, like a lot, right? And so if you are not looking at what you're going to do with all of that data, you're going to run into a lot of problems, right? Either you're going to so overwhelm your system that you can't find the basic stuff. But the reality is, like, no SOC, no human's going to be able to process that data. So you need some sort of AI, machine learning. You need the playbooks. You need the automation to just make sense of that data, so that you can find, for a lot of agencies, it is finding the needle in the haystack, right? That weird thing that happened. And the more we log, it's great, but it's harder to find that one thing on your own, right?
So, I think I'm preaching to the choir. Get a hold of that data. Anything, small, medium, or large amounts of data, they all need to be created, they all need to be logged, they all need to be moved into intelligence, and from the intelligence comes the decision making, which could be automated, it could be predictive, it could be of any kind. So inventory your data at the same time that you're creating it, log it, normalize it, and make it useful for multiple domains, operations as well as security. Security is only the means by which you actually achieve resiliency in your operations. And so security is just one of the artifacts you use to make that, to build that resiliency. And for the community that we work with, which is DoD, warfighters are it. And we need to equip them with as much intelligence as we can for them to make those decisions. So get a hold of that data and unleash it.
Great, brilliant. Know what to protect. So understand your protect surface, understand the data. Very good, thank you. All right, well, so we gave you everything you need to know about security, right, in 20 minutes. Look, there's a lot of resources we mentioned here. We're going to try to get those up on our website so you can have links to them if you didn't capture them all. But feel free to catch up with us at lunchtime. We'll have birds of a feather around cybersecurity and Zero Trust. Thank you, the three of you, very much for being up on stage with us today and sharing your stories. And we'll turn it back over. Thank you.